The clock on the mantel read 11 p.m. when she walked into the living room, her footsteps deliberately loud against the hardwood floor. I didn't look up from my book immediately, though I could feel the energy radiating off her, that particular combination of nervousness and manufactured confidence I'd come to recognize over our 7 years of marriage. "We need to talk," she said, her voice carrying that rehearsed quality that told me she'd been practicing this moment in her head for days, maybe weeks. I closed my book slowly, marked my place, and set it on the side table. "All right," I said, meeting her eyes. They were bright, almost feverish, and I noticed her hands trembling slightly even as she tried to stand tall. "I'm leaving," she announced, crossing her arms. "I've found someone better." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. She was waiting for something: shock, anger, tears perhaps. I'd seen enough crime dramas to know she expected me to either crumble or explode. Instead, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, the kind that comes when something you've suspected finally gets confirmed. "Someone better," I repeated quietly, letting the words settle. "That's interesting timing." Her eyebrows drew together, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. This wasn't going according to her script. "What do you mean, timing?" I leaned back in my chair, studying her face the way you might study a stranger's. "Tell me about him. This someone better. Does he have a name?" She lifted her chin defiantly. "His name is Ryan. He's successful, ambitious, and he actually appreciates me. He sees my worth, which is more than I can say for you these past few years." "Ryan," I said, nodding slowly. "Ryan Patterson, right? 42 years old, works in commercial real estate, drives a black Tesla, divorced about 3 years ago." The color began to drain from her face. "How do you? And you've been seeing him for about 4 months now," I continued, my voice steady and calm. "Meeting him during those extended lunch breaks, those evening yoga classes you suddenly became so passionate about, and those weekend work conferences that seemed to pop up every other week." She took a step back, her arms dropping to her sides. "You've been spying on me." "No," I said simply. "I've been paying attention. There's a difference." Her mouth opened and closed, but the confident speech she'd prepared was clearly falling apart. I could see her trying to regain her footing, to remember whatever she'd planned to say next. "Well, it doesn't matter how you found out," she said, though her voice had lost some of its edge. "The point is, I'm in love with him, and I'm moving into his apartment downtown next week. I've already packed most of my things. They're in the storage unit I rented last month." "The storage unit on Maple Street," I said. "Unit 247. "Stop it," she snapped, her composure finally cracking. "Stop acting like you know everything. You don't know what it's like being married to someone who's just there. Someone who doesn't excite me anymore, who doesn't make me feel alive." I let her words echo in the room for a moment before speaking. "Is that what Ryan makes you feel? Alive?" "Yes," she said, but it came out as almost a whisper. "He makes me feel things I haven't felt in years." "Made," I corrected gently. "What?" "Made you feel. Past tense." She stared at me, and I could see the first real hint of fear creeping into her eyes. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, setting it on the coffee table between us. The screen was dark, but its presence seemed to fill the room. "Here's the thing about timing," I said, my voice still calm, still measured. "You chose 11 p.m. for this conversation. That's very deliberate, isn't it? Late enough that I'd be tired, caught off guard. Late enough that you thought you could deliver your news and be out the door before I could fully process what was happening." "I don't." "But what you didn't account for," I continued, "was that Ryan called me this afternoon. Around 3:30, to be precise." The room went absolutely silent. Even the old house seemed to stop its familiar creaking. She stood frozen, her face cycling through expressions: confusion, denial, fear, and finally, a dawning horror. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" I asked, and for the first time that evening, I allowed myself a small, sad smile. She stumbled backward until she hit the armchair behind her, gripping its back for support. "You're lying," she said, but her voice had lost all conviction. "Ryan wouldn't. He would never." "Call your husband." I finished for her. "You're right. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't. But these weren't normal circumstances, were they?" I picked up my phone and scrolled through my call log, turning the screen toward her so she could see the incoming call from an unknown number, timestamped at 3:37 p.m., duration, 43 minutes. 43 minutes is a long conversation to have with a stranger, I said, setting the phone back down. Especially when that stranger is calling to tell you that you've both been played. She sank into the armchair, her carefully constructed facade crumbling like wet cardboard. "What did he say?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "He said a lot of things," I replied, standing up and walking to the window. Outside, the street was quiet, the neighbors' houses dark. Normal people were sleeping, not having their lives torn apart. "But first, let me ask you something. Did you tell Ryan you were married?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "That's what I thought," I said, turning back to face her. "See, Ryan thought he was dating a woman who'd been divorced for 2 years. A woman who'd been hurt by her ex-husband, me, apparently, and was finally ready to move on. A woman who just needed a little time before she could fully commit." "I was going to tell him," she said weakly. "I just needed to find the right moment." "The right moment?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "How about 4 months ago, on your first date? Or 3 months ago, when things got serious? Or 2 months ago, when you started planning to move in with him?" She covered her face with her hands. "How did he find out?" "Your friend Jessica," I said, watching her head snap up. "Turns out Ryan knows her husband from their gym. Small world, isn't it? They ran into each other last week, and Jessica, assuming Ryan knew you were married, made some comment about how brave you were to be starting over." "Oh God," she breathed. Ryan, confused, asked what she meant. Jessica, realizing her mistake, tried to backtrack, but the damage was done. "He looked you up, found our wedding announcement from 7 years ago, our social media photos, the ones you never bothered to delete, and he put the pieces together." I returned to my chair, sitting down heavily. The adrenaline that had been sustaining me was beginning to fade, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. "He spent the weekend investigating," I continued. "He's in real estate, so he knows how to do research. He found out about the house we own together, the joint bank accounts, everything. And then he started wondering what else you might have lied about." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark rivulets. "What else?" she asked, though she seemed afraid of the answer. "The apartment downtown," I said. "The one you told him was too small for both of you, the one you asked him to help you get out of so you could move in with him instead." She nodded miserably. "Doesn't exist. He had his assistant call every property management company in the downtown area. There's no lease in your name, no rental history, nothing. You made it all up to speed up the timeline, to push him into asking you to move in faster." "I just wanted." "You wanted to secure your exit strategy," I interrupted. "You wanted to make sure you had somewhere to land before you jumped. I understand the logic. It's actually quite calculated." She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. "Why did he call you? Why didn't he just confront me?" "He did confront you," I said. "Or he tried to. He called you yesterday around noon. Do you remember?" I watched the realization dawn on her face. "I told him I was in a meeting and I'd call him back." "But you never did. You sent a text instead, something brief about being swamped at work. He called again in the evening, and you declined it. Sent another text." I was trying to figure out how to handle. "How to keep lying to him," I corrected. "And that's when he decided to call me instead. He wanted to hear my side of the story. Wanted to know if I was really the monster you'd painted me as, or if there was more to the picture." I stood up again, too restless to stay seated. "We talked for a long time, your Ryan and I compared notes. Talked about the woman we both thought we knew. And you want to know what we discovered?" She didn't answer, just stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. Neither of us really knew you at all. The silence in the room was suffocating. She sat hunched in the armchair, her whole body trembling as the weight of her exposed deceptions settled over her. I found myself pacing, working through the anger and hurt that threatened to overwhelm the calm exterior I'd maintained. "There's more, isn't there?" she finally asked, her voice hoarse. "You wouldn't be this calm if that was everything." I had to give her credit. Even cornered, she could still read me. 7 years of marriage had given her that much. "You're right," I said, stopping my pacing to face her directly. "Ryan and I had a very thorough conversation. We filled in a lot of blanks for each other. For instance, the money." She went rigid. "What money?" "The $15,000 that's disappeared from our savings account over the past 4 months. Small withdrawals, carefully spaced out, 200 here, 500 there, never enough at once to trigger any alerts. You thought I wouldn't notice." "That money was for..." "For what?" I challenged. "Our emergency fund, the one we've been building for the past 5 years? The one we agreed we were saving for a down payment on a bigger house? What did you need $15,000 for?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Expenses. Dating isn't cheap." "Gifts," I said flatly. "Ryan told me about the expensive watch you bought him for his birthday last month. The designer wallet for their 3-month anniversary. The weekend trip to the coast you surprised him with. All paid for with our money, from our joint account, while I was here thinking we were building a future together." "You never paid attention to me," she burst out, finding some reserve of defensive anger. "When was the last time you took me somewhere nice? When did you last buy me anything that wasn't practical?" "Last month," I said calmly. "The first edition of your favorite book that I tracked down from 3 different rare book dealers. Cost me $400 and weeks of searching. It's still wrapped on your nightstand. You never even opened it." She flinched as if I'd struck her. "But that's not even the interesting part about the money," I continued. "Want to know what Ryan told me about his finances?" She shook her head, but I kept going anyway. 3 weeks ago, you told him you needed help. Your mother was sick, which was news to me, considering I saw your mother at the grocery store yesterday looking perfectly healthy. You said she needed surgery, something not covered by insurance, and you were short $5,000. Her face went white. "Ryan, being the generous man he is, gave you the money. No questions asked. He cared about you, wanted to help. Except your mother isn't sick, is she?" "I can explain." "Don't," I said sharply, the first real anger breaking through my composure. "Don't insult both of us with more lies. We're past that now." She dissolved into fresh tears, her body racking with sobs. I felt a complicated mixture of emotions: anger, pity, grief for what we'd lost, or maybe for what we'd never really had. "Ryan ended things with you yesterday," I said, once her crying had subsided to sniffles. "After our phone call, he tried to reach you one more time. He sent you a text message at 8:47 p.m. Want to know what it said?" She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, scrolling through her messages. I watched her face as she read it, watched the last bit of color drain away. "He said he couldn't be with someone who'd built their entire relationship on lies," I said, reciting the message I'd seen screenshots of. "He said he felt sorry for your husband, for me, and that he hoped you'd get help for whatever was broken inside you that made you think this was acceptable behavior." "He had no right." "He had every right," I interrupted. "Just like I have every right to be standing here, watching your grand exit strategy collapse around you." She looked up at me, mascara streaked and desperate. "So what happens now? You get to feel superior? You win." "Win?" I laughed bitterly. "Nobody wins here. My marriage is over. 7 years of my life were spent with someone who could look me in the eye every single day while planning her escape. Someone who could steal from our joint account, lie to her lover, manipulate everyone around her, and then have the audacity to blame me for not paying her enough attention." I grabbed my phone and pulled up another screenshot. "But since you asked what happens now, let me show you something else Ryan sent me." I turned the screen toward her. It was a photo of a text message exchange, her messages to Ryan from 2 weeks ago, detailing her plans. You told him the lease on your apartment ended next Friday, I read aloud. You told him you'd already given notice, that you had nowhere else to go, and you'd be homeless if he didn't let you move in early. You really knew how to apply pressure. Stop, she whispered. You also told him about your terrible husband, I continued. How I'd threatened you if you tried to leave. How I controlled all the finances. How you were afraid of what I might do. I never said. It's all here, I said, holding up the phone. Screenshots. Evidence. Ryan was thorough. He documented everything before he ended things, probably in case you tried to cause him trouble later. She stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the floor lamp beside the chair. I need to call him. I need to explain, make him understand. He blocked your number, I said quietly. After you tried calling him 17 times yesterday evening and sent 43 text messages ranging from apologetic to threatening. He showed me those too. She swayed on her feet, and for a moment I thought she might collapse. This can't be happening. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. How was it supposed to go? I asked, genuine curiosity cutting through my anger. You walk in here at 11 p.m., announce you're leaving, and I just, what? Fall apart? Beg you to stay? Make it easy for you to cast yourself as the victim of a broken marriage. I just wanted out, she said, her voice cracking. I just wanted something different, something exciting. Is that so wrong? Wanting out isn't wrong, I replied. We could have had that conversation honestly, months ago. We could have gone to counseling, tried to fix what was broken, or agreed to part ways with dignity. But that's not what you did. I walked to the bookshelf and pulled down a folder I'd hidden behind our photo albums, photos that now felt like documentation of a lie. Instead, you plotted and schemed. You stole money. You manipulated Ryan. You lied to your friends, to your family, to everyone. What is that? She asked, eyeing the folder warily. Bank statements, I said, opening it. Credit card bills. The private investigator's report. Her eyes widened. You hired her. 3 months ago, I confirmed. After I found a hotel receipt in your coat pocket that you'd forgotten about. I needed to know if my suspicions were right, or if I was being paranoid. I spread the papers across the coffee table. Photos of her and Ryan at restaurants, going into his apartment building, walking hand in hand through the park. Detailed logs of her movements, her lies catalogued with timestamps and locations. I've known for 3 months, I said. I watched you lie to my face every single day. I listened to you make up elaborate stories about where you'd been, who you'd seen. And I documented everything. Why? The question came out as a broken whisper. Why didn't you just confront me? Because I needed to know how deep it went, I said. I needed to understand who I'd really married. And I needed to protect myself legally. She sank back into the chair, all fight drained out of her. Legally. The house is in both our names, but I paid the entire down payment. I have the wire transfer records. The car you drive is registered to me. The credit cards you've been using for your secret life? I've been tracking every charge. Every gift for Ryan, every nice dinner, every hotel room, all documented. I sat down across from her, suddenly exhausted. I spoke to a lawyer 6 weeks ago. Filed for divorce 4 weeks ago. You'll be served the papers tomorrow morning. She looked genuinely shocked. You've already filed. I was waiting to see what you'd do, I admitted. Part of me hoped you'd come clean on your own, that you'd show some remorse, some recognition of what you were destroying. Instead, you planned this little performance for tonight. The apartment downtown, she said suddenly, realization hitting her. You knew there was no apartment. I knew everything, I confirmed. Ryan wasn't the only one you lied to about your living situation. You told your sister you were staying with a friend from college while you looked for a place. You told that friend you were staying with your sister. You were planning to bounce between them for a few weeks until Ryan's guilt or love or whatever you were counting on kicked in and he took you back. He won't take me back, she said dully. You made sure of that. I didn't make sure of anything, I corrected. You did this all yourself. I just connected two people who deserved to know the truth. Ryan called me, remember? He'd already figured out you were married. All I did was confirm it and share notes on our mutual experience of being lied to. She was crying again, but quietly now, hopelessly. What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore, I said, and I meant it. You're an adult who made adult choices. Now you get to face adult consequences. But I have nothing, she protested. No money, nowhere to stay. You have your salary, I pointed out. You make good money at your job, or you did, before you started taking all those extended lunch breaks and fake sick days. You might want to focus on that, actually, since your boss has been trying to reach you about your performance reviews. She pulled out her phone again, scrolling frantically. Oh God, I have 4 missed calls from work. I thought, I've been so distracted, I didn't even. The money you took from our account will need to be paid back, I continued. My lawyer has all the documentation. The $5,000 you scammed from Ryan, that's between you and him, but I'd be prepared for him to pursue it legally if you don't return it. I spent it, she whispered. Of course you did. The clock on the mantel now read 12:47 a.m. Nearly 2 hours had passed since she'd walked in with her rehearsed speech, ready to devastate me with her departure. Instead, she sat broken in the armchair, her carefully constructed alternate life shattered around her. I loved you, she said suddenly, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. In the beginning, I really did love you. Maybe, I acknowledged. Or maybe you loved the idea of me, the security I represented. I don't think either of us will ever really know. When did you stop loving me? She asked. I considered the question honestly. I'm not sure I have. That's the complicated part. I'm angry, I'm hurt, I feel betrayed in ways I'm not sure I can fully articulate yet. But 7 years doesn't just disappear because you made terrible choices. Then why? Because love isn't enough, I interrupted. Trust matters. Respect matters. Partnership matters. You destroyed all of that. Even if some part of me still loves the woman I thought you were, I can't be married to the woman you actually are. She nodded slowly, seeming to age years in that moment. Your lawyer, the divorce papers, what are you asking for? The house, I said. Since I paid for it. My retirement accounts, which have always been separate. You can keep your car, it's old, but it's paid off. We'll split the remaining savings account 50-50, minus what you stole. My lawyer has a complete accounting. That's it. You're not trying to take everything. I'm not vindictive, I said. I just want this to be over. You sign the papers, agree to the terms, and we can both move on with our lives. She laughed bitterly. Move on to what? I've destroyed everything. My job is probably gone after all the time I've missed. Ryan won't speak to me. I've lied to everyone who cares about me. What exactly am I moving on to? That's something you'll have to figure out, I said, not unkindly. Maybe this is rock bottom for you. Maybe this is where you start being honest, with yourself, if no one else. I don't know how, she whispered. I don't know how to be that person. Then find a therapist. Do the work. Figure out why you thought any of this was acceptable. I stood up, suddenly desperate to be alone. But you need to leave. Tonight. Where am I supposed to go at 1 in the morning? You told your sister you were staying with college friend Sarah. You told Sarah you were staying with your sister. I'd suggest actually calling one of them and telling the truth for once. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, then looked up at me. What if they won't take me in? Then I suggest you book a hotel room. There's one about 3 miles from here. I'm sure you remember it. You've been there often enough. She flinched at the barb but didn't argue. I watched as she made the call, her voice small and ashamed as she asked her sister if she could come over. The conversation was brief, and I could hear her sister's confusion even from across the room. She said yes, she reported numbly. She wants to know what's going on. Then I suggest you tell her the truth, I said. All of it. Because everyone's going to find out anyway. She stood slowly, gathering her purse with trembling hands. At the doorway, she turned back one last time. I'm sorry, she said. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry. I believe you're sorry it didn't work out the way you planned, I replied. I believe you're sorry you got caught. I'm not sure you're sorry for what you actually did. She opened her mouth as if to argue, then closed it again. What was there to say? We both knew I was right. The storage unit on Maple Street, I said as she reached for the door handle. Unit 247. You'll need to clean it out within 30 days or they'll auction the contents. It's in your name, your responsibility. How did you? I know everything, I reminded her. I've known for months. The only surprise tonight was that you thought you could surprise me. She nodded, tears streaming down her face again. Goodbye, she whispered. Goodbye, I replied, and meant it in every sense of the word. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I heard her car start, heard it pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street. Then there was only silence. I returned to my chair and picked up my book, trying to find my place. The words blurred on the page. I set it down again and looked around the living room, our living room, soon to be just my living room. 7 years of memories, good and bad, real and fabricated. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Did she show up? Yes, I typed back. It went exactly as we expected. How are you holding up? I'll be fine, I replied, and surprisingly, I meant it. Thank you for calling me. You saved me from a much uglier confrontation. Thank you for being honest with me. I'm sorry we both had to go through this. So am I. Take care of yourself. You too. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. Tomorrow, she'd be served with divorce papers. She'd have to face her sister's questions, her friend's judgment, the consequences of her choices. She'd have to figure out how to rebuild a life from the ruins of her own making. And me. I'd already started rebuilding. The lawyer was handled. The house would be mine. I'd taken back control of our finances. I'd protected myself as best I could. But more than that, I'd learned something valuable. I was stronger than I'd given myself credit for. Strong enough to investigate when I suspected the truth. Strong enough to gather evidence and protect myself legally. Strong enough to have a calm conversation with my wife's lover. Strong enough to let her go without begging or pleading or making a scene. The clock struck 2 a.m. I finally allowed myself to feel it, all the anger, the hurt, the betrayal, the grief. I let it wash over me in waves, sitting alone in the quiet house. Tomorrow, I'd start the next chapter. Tonight, I mourned the end of this one. But I didn't regret standing my ground. I didn't regret exposing the lies. And I definitely didn't regret the look on her face when she realized that her carefully planned dramatic exit had turned into her worst nightmare. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's just the quiet, devastating power of the truth.